Have you ever wondered what the ultimate meaning of all our efforts, our joys and sorrows, the ups and downs we go through? In our darkest moments, when all hope seems lost, what is it that keeps extraordinary people ingrediente and find the light? There's a book, slender in form, but carrying the weight of an extraordinary life. A book voted by the U.S. Library of Congress as one of the 10 most influential books in America, translated into over 24 languages and touching the hearts of millions. That book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And today, I want to invite you to join me on a journey to discover the priceless lessons from this classic. Together, we'll explore why sometimes the very things that cause you immense suffering are actually there to save you. Sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? But trust me, by the end of this journey, you might just find a profound moment for yourself. Before we turn the pages, let's get to know the author a little. Viktor Frankl. He wasn't just a writer, he was an eminent Austrian psychiatrist, a man hailed as a miracle worker of the 20th century. But what makes his life and writings so profoundly impactful is that he personally endured the most horrific trials imaginable. Born and raised in Vienna, a cultural and intellectual hub of Europe, Frankl showed an early passion for psychology. He had a promising career as the head of the neurology department at a major Viennese hospital and a happy family life. But then, the dark shadow of Nazism fell over Europe. As a Jew, Frankl and his family faced an uncertain future. A detail not many know is that the U.S. consulate in Vienna offered him an entry visa, a golden opportunity to escape the impending danger. Imagine facing such a life or death choice. On one hand, your own safety. On the other, your family, your elderly parents, your patients who needed you. Frankl chose to stay. He couldn't bear the thought of abandoning his loved ones and those who depended on his help. A courageous decision, but also a tragic one. Just a few months later, the Nazis occupied Vienna. Frankl, his wife, who was pregnant with their first child, his parents, and his siblings were all arrested and sent to concentration camps, places notoriously known as death factories, like Auschwitz and Dachau. Can you imagine? From a respected doctor, a brilliant intellectual, Frankl was suddenly reduced to a number, an anonymous prisoner, stripped of all human dignity, facing hunger, cold, torture, and the constant threat of death. It was in this crucible of extreme suffering, on the fragile line between life and death, that Viktor Frankl not only fought for survival, but also constantly observed, contemplated, and recorded the psychological experiences of himself and his fellow prisoners. Those notes, initially scribbled hastily on scraps of paper, became the foundation for Man's Search for Meaning and Logotherapy, an influential school of psychotherapy that we'll explore shortly. Now, let's step into the first part of the book, where Frankl, not with lofty theories, but with a raw, sometimes chillingly frank voice, recounts what he witnessed and endured. Try to picture this. You and 1,500 other people, businessmen, doctors, teachers, scientists, individuals who once led proud lives, are crammed into cattle cars, then thrust into a place where human dignity is trampled mercilessly. Each day brought only a small piece of bread and a bowl of watery soup. They had only one thin set of clothes to wear, day and night, regardless of the harsh weather. They were forced to do hard labor, like repairing railway tracks and digging earth, while their strength dwindled. At night, 9 people would huddle together on a wooden plank, sharing 2 tattered blankets, using their mud-caked shoes as pillows. Frankl describes how all personal belongings, even the smallest keepsakes, were confiscated. Their heads were shaved, numbers tattooed on their arms, turning them into inanimate objects. The threat of the gas chambers, the crematoria, or random beatings from the guards loomed constantly. A slight misstep, a look deemed inappropriate, or simply a guard in a bad mood could lead to a brutal beating. And more terrifyingly, when their bodies gave out, when they could no longer work, they would be selected for the gas chambers. Their lives ended mercilessly. In the book, Frankl outlines 3 psychological phases most prisoners went through: the shock phase upon arrival, the apathy phase as they became accustomed to the brutality, and the liberation phase, including the difficulties of readjustment, if they were lucky enough to survive. He doesn't romanticize reality or seek pity. He simply tells the truth, a truth so stark, it's heartbreaking. You might wonder, how could anyone survive, physically and mentally, in such an environment? Frankl noticed that elements of luck, the crucial factor distinguishing survivors from those who succumbed, wasn't entirely physical strength. He observed fellow prisoners who, though physically weak, held on to a cherished image, a wife, a child waiting at home, an unfinished scientific work, and they possessed an extraordinary will to live. Conversely, those who lost faith, who lost their purpose, often deteriorated very fast. There's a haunting detail in the book when Frankl describes being forced to shower naked with other prisoners in the freezing winter. In that moment, stripped of all material possessions and social status, he realized something profound. Apart from our naked bodies, we had nothing left. Accumulated wealth meant nothing. So many of your things, all your external trappings, could be taken away by some uncontrollable force at any moment. Reading this, many of you might shudder at the brutality of war and the fragility of human life. But it's precisely from this abyss of despair that an important truth began to emerge. A truth that would become the cornerstone of Viktor Frankl's entire philosophy of life. That truth is the concept of the freedom of choice. If we summarize the essence of man's search for meaning in 3 words, they would be choice, suffering, meaning. These 3 words aren't just abstract concepts. They are guiding principles, lighthouses that help us navigate the stormy seas of life. Now, let's decode each keyword, one by one, to see how Viktor Frankl ignited the light of hope from the ashes of despair. Theme 1. Choice. The ultimate inalienable power. Let's return to that moment when Frankl realized he was naked, with nothing left but his bare existence. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." This is one of the most powerful messages, a true aha moment the book offers. Think about it. In the concentration camp, Frankl and other prisoners were stripped of nearly all freedoms. Freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of possession, even the right to live. Their environment was the same, harsh and brutal. Yet each person's reaction was entirely different. Some chose to give up, to let go, even to seek death as an escape. Frankl mentions that running into the electrified fence was the easiest way to commit suicide. Others became apathetic, emotionally numb, as a defense mechanism. But there were also those, like Frankl, who chose to confront their reality, to maintain their dignity, to find some meaning even in the most absurd circumstances. Frankl always believed, even in the worst psychological and physical conditions, man can preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom and independence of mind. Thus, he can choose his own behavior and reactions, and decide what kind of person he wants to become. He didn't choose to be a passive victim of his circumstances. He chose to observe, to analyze, and even to find a glimmer of humanity, of humor, of natural beauty, like a sunset seen through the prison bars, to nourish his soul. What does this mean for us, living in a world with far more freedom? We don't face gas chambers or crematoria, but modern life has its own invisible concentration camps. Work pressure, broken relationships, bitter failures, unexpected illnesses. We can't control everything that happens to us, can we? We can't choose the family we're born into, whether our boss is fair, or whether the person we love reciprocates our feelings. But we always have the power to choose how we respond to these things. When you face failure, do you choose to collapse and blame yourself? Or do you choose to get up, learn from your mistakes, and keep going? When others treat you unjustly, do you choose to harbor hatred and seek revenge? Or do you choose forgiveness, keeping your soul at peace? That is your power of choice. No one can take it away. As Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, also emphasized, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our happiness. Frankl lived and proved this truth in the most dire circumstances. Many readers on book forums like Goodreads have shared how this chapter on choice awakened them. One person wrote, "I used to think I was a victim of my circumstances, that my life was bad because of others. But after reading Frankl, I realized I had surrendered control of my life to external factors. Now, I understand that no matter what happens, I still have the right to choose how I face it." That is the power of choice. The second keyword we'll explore is suffering. Sounds negative, doesn't it? Who among us wants to suffer? We always try to avoid it, to run away from it. But Viktor Frankl, through his experiences, offers us a very different, more profound perspective on suffering. He doesn't deny the existence and harshness of suffering. He himself endured physical and mental pain that most of us can hardly imagine. His feet were swollen. His knees wouldn't bend due to cold and overwork. Every step was agony. He contracted typhus and nearly ended up in the crematorium. He witnessed loved ones and friends perish one by one. That pain was real. It was horrific. However, Frankl believed that suffering in itself is not meaningless. The meaning of suffering depends on the attitude we adopt towards it. A famous Russian writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, whom Frankl greatly admired, once said, "There is only one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings." This quote resonates throughout Frankl's work. Having endured so much, how can one ensure that such suffering isn't in vain? How can it be transformed into something of value? Frankl believed that if there's a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering, like death, is an inescapable part of life. Life would not be complete without experiences of suffering. The important thing is not to avoid suffering at all costs, but to find meaning in that very suffering. When suffering finds a meaning, such as the meaning of sacrifice, it ceases to be suffering in the same way. Remember the prisoners in the concentration camps. Frankl noticed that those who could find a reason, a purpose for their suffering, for example, enduring to be reunited with loved ones, or to complete some mission, often had greater resilience. Their pain didn't disappear, but it was imbued with meaning. And that helped them continue to fight. Everything that causes you suffering is here to save you. It sounds strange at first, but if you think deeply, it contains a profound truth. The difficulties, challenges, and pains that life throws at us, though unwelcome, are often opportunities for us to grow, to discover our hidden strengths, and to reevaluate what truly matters in life. Like a pearl formed from an irritating grain of sand inside an oyster, or like steel tempered in fire and cold water. The great poet Rumi also wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Frankl doesn't advocate seeking out suffering, but he encourages us, when suffering is unavoidable, to face it with courage, dignity, and an attempt to find some meaning in it. It can be an opportunity to demonstrate courage, patience, or even to inspire others. Think about our own lives, those long overtime hours, working ourselves to provide for our families, the pain of a broken relationship, the loss when a loved one passes away, or an unexpected illness. These are all forms of suffering. Instead of drowning in despair, can we find some meaning? Perhaps the hardship at work is to provide a better life for our children. The pain of separation might teach us to cherish our current relationships more. Loss might remind us of the value of time and love. Illness could be a wake-up call to live a healthier, more meaningful life. As the poet Tagore wrote, "Only after passing through hell-like suffering can one develop the strength to create heaven. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger." But Frankl takes it further. What doesn't kill us? If we choose the right attitude, it will help us find a deeper meaning in life. And finally, we arrive at the most important keyword, the pinnacle of Viktor Frankl's philosophy: meaning. If choice is the tool and suffering is the test, then meaning is the destination, the guiding star. Frankl asserted that the most fundamental human drive is not the pursuit of pleasure, as Freud believed, or the pursuit of power and superiority, as Adler believed, but rather the will to meaning. Humans have an innate desire to find and fulfill a specific meaning for their own existence. When this will is frustrated, people fall into what Frankl called the existential vacuum, a feeling of meaninglessness, emptiness, and boredom, prevalent in modern society. In the concentration camp, Frankl witnessed firsthand the power of meaning. He recounted that the death rate was highest around Christmas. Why? Because many prisoners had clung to the faint hope that they would be home by Christmas. When that hope was shattered, their spirits collapsed, their bodies' resistance weakened, and they easily succumbed to illness or the harsh conditions. This showed that what keeps a person alive is not vague hope, but specific meaning. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. This is a quote from Nietzsche that Frankl often cited, and it became a motto for his logotherapy. So, how do we find meaning in life? Frankl doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all answer, because meaning is something very personal and unique. It changes from person to person, from day to day, from hour to hour. However, he identified three main paths through which we can discover meaning. Path 1. By creating a work or doing a deed. This is the path of finding meaning through what we contribute, create, or accomplish. It could be writing a book, building a business, contributing to a scientific project, raising children, volunteering for a cause. You're simply doing our daily work well and with dedication. When you put your mind and heart into a task, you feel a sense of value and purpose. For Frankl, even in the camp, trying to reconstruct his book manuscript on scraps of paper was a work that gave meaning to his existence. Path 2. By experiencing something or encountering someone, meaning can be found in experiencing the beauty of nature, art, or culture, or more importantly, in love and connection with others. Loving someone, caring for someone, building deep relationships. These are inexhaustible sources of meaning. Frankl recounted how the image of his beloved wife, constantly in his thoughts, helped him overcome the most desperate moments. Love, he believed, is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Path 3. by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. This is the final path, and perhaps the loftiest. When we cannot change a situation, like an incurable illness or an irreplaceable loss, we can still change ourselves. We can choose to face suffering with courage, dignity, and maturity, transforming a personal tragedy into an inner triumph. It is in this choice that life can retain meaning until its very last breath. Logotherapy, the school of psychotherapy Frankl developed, is based on these principles. It doesn't try to dig into the past like psychoanalysis, but focuses on the future, on the meanings and purposes that the patient can find and fulfill. It helps people realize that life always has meaning under all circumstances, and that humans always have the freedom to find that meaning. Many critics and readers have recognized logotherapy as a significant contribution to psychology. Instead of viewing humans as creatures driven by instincts or circumstances, Frankl restored human dignity and responsibility. He helps us see that no matter what life throws at us, we still have the power to find meaning and live a life worth living. After being liberated from the concentration camp in 1945, Viktor Frankl faced a stark and painful reality. His parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife, whom he loved dearly, had all perished in the camps from illness and starvation. He found himself utterly alone. Many fellow survivors had emigrated to other countries. He had no close relatives or friends left. Faced with such overwhelming loss, many might have collapsed, consumed by grief and despair. But Frankl chose differently. He decided to return to his old profession, psychiatry, to help those who had been mentally scarred by the war. He lived true to what he had contemplated and written. Instead of letting pain engulf him, he transformed it into a driving force for contribution. He threw himself into his work, combining his harrowing experiences with his profound academic knowledge to refine and disseminate logotherapy. He rewrote man's search for meaning. In just 9 days, a testament to the intense inner urge. In the following decades, Frankl wrote over 30 other books and traveled the world lecturing and providing psychological counseling. He helped countless people, fathers and mothers suicidal over the loss of a child, husbands unable to let go of deceased wives, thousands of strangers living in confusion and disorientation. He rekindled their will to live with the very therapy he had conceived in his darkest days. What's truly admirable is that his experience of escaping death ignited an immense passion for life. He was always ready to experience new things. At the age of 67, he began learning to fly and obtained his pilot's license within a few months. At 80, he was still conquering high peaks in the Alps, Europe's largest mountain range. Until he was over 90, he continued to speak with visitors from all over the world and personally answered letters every week to help people with their queries. Frankl's life after liberation is a powerful testament to his philosophy, that one can find meaning even in the most tragic circumstances, and that suffering can be transformed into achievement. The war had destroyed Frankl's personal life and taken his loved ones, but he chose to rise from the ashes of suffering and live a radiant life, inspiring millions. As the saying goes, suffering is the springboard for genius, good fortune for the capable, and an abyss for the weak. Frankl clearly belonged to the group of the capable and the genius. Renowned universities like Harvard, Stanford, Dallas, and Pittsburgh invited him as a visiting professor. Famous politicians, philosophers, and even Pope Paul VI read his books and sought him out for discussions. His life is a hymn to resilience, to the love of life, and to the power of the human will. So, are the lessons from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, a book written over half a century ago, based on experiences in a unique historical context, still relevant to us today? My answer is incredibly relevant, perhaps even more urgent than ever. We live in a modern, convenient world, but one that is also rife with invisible pressures. Many people, especially young people, feel lost and empty, even if they seemingly have it all: good jobs and material comfort. The existential vacuum Frankl spoke of seems to be widespread. We easily get caught up in the pursuit of external goals, money, fame, status, forgetting to ask ourselves, what truly brings meaning to my life? Man's Search for Meaning doesn't offer a universal formula for finding meaning, because meaning is unique to each individual. But it gives us tools and hints to discover it for ourselves. You have the power of choice. Next time you encounter a difficulty, a failure, or criticism, pause for a moment before reacting habitually. Remember that you have a space to choose your attitude. Do you choose to be a victim, or do you choose to be the master? Isn't that an aha moment? Realizing you're not as helpless as you thought? Suffering can have meaning. Everyone fears suffering. But if we understand that suffering is a part of life and that we can find growth, understanding, and even a new purpose from that very suffering, can we face it more courageously? Sometimes it's the wounds that let the light in, helping us see more clearly what truly matters. The search for meaning is a core drive. If you feel empty, perhaps you're lacking a big enough why. Try exploring the 3 avenues Frankl suggested. What are you creating? What meaning does your work have for you and for others? Do you have any passions you want to pursue? What are you experiencing? Do you spend time with the people you love? Do you pause to appreciate the beauty of life around you? When faced with unchangeable circumstances, what is your attitude? Can you find strength, acceptance, or even gratitude in those situations? There's a quote by Carl Jung that fits perfectly here. "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Man's Search for Meaning is a powerful affirmation of that truth. Many readers have shared that this book was like a spiritual medicine, helping them through crises. One comment on social media read, "This book saved me during my darkest days. It reminded me that even when everything seems to fall apart, I still have a reason to live, to hope, to find meaning." My dear friends at BookSmart Insights, our journey exploring man's search for meaning today has likely touched some deep corners of our souls. From the horrific experiences in the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl distilled priceless lessons about the power of choice, the ability to find meaning even in suffering, and the will to pursue a reason for living as a fundamental human drive. Frankl's life is a resounding testament that it's not our circumstances that define who we are, but our attitude and choices in the face of those circumstances. Man's Search for Meaning is not just a memoir, a psychological work, but also a guiding torch, a reminder that each of us has the capacity to rise above limitations and suffering, to live a full and meaningful life. Remember, as Frankl said, life poses questions to us daily, and we answer not with words or thoughts, but with our actions. By the very way we live. Live your present life as if you were living it for the second time, and as if you had acted wrongly the first time, as you are about to act now. I truly hope that today's sharing has given you new perspectives and inspiration to face any difficulties in life. If you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning, I sincerely urge you to do so. It might just be one of those books that changes your life. And now, if you found this video helpful, Please don't hesitate to give it a like. Share this video with friends who you think might also need strength from these meaningful messages. Most importantly, please leave a comment below, sharing your feelings, your thoughts about the book, what resonated with you, or how you found meaning in your own life. BookSmart Insights would love to hear your stories. Don't forget to subscribe to the BookSmart Insights channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our weekly videos sharing personal development insights through great books. Once again, thank you for listening and for being with BookSmart Insights. May you always find your reason for being, find meaning and joy in every day of your life. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.